So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the tools, because that seemed to get a few more hands. So the hands have it. We'll start with you, please.
I was telling Tyler this is the danger of sitting on the end of the row. You either get the microphone first or last. So here's hoping I say something wise, right? So tools about engaging the reader. We were talking about this before, and there are times when I'm writing where I'm like, what reader? Really? Somebody else is going to read this book besides me? And I just think I'm writing just for myself. And I just write, what's the next most cool thing that could happen? What sounds good to me? And so there are times when I write that I completely ignore the reader altogether. And those scenes sometimes are some of my favorites. There are other times where I'm very conscious about the reader and I think about, okay, is the scene dragging on too much? Is the dialogue not helping forward the plot? Are the characters acting out of context? And those then I do step back and think, okay, how can I make this more streamlined? How can I make this more engaging for people on the other side to have the same experience with the story that I'm having, actually writing it. And usually that comes, the tools that I use for that, I usually use after I'm done with the draft. I'll do some tinkering in the process of writing, but I usually wait to do heavy editing or restructuring or revising until I'm all the way done with my first draft and I know where the story's going to go. Part of that is because half of my brain has been trained to work as an editor, and so when I'm done being creative and I'm done doing the writing part, I change the way my document looks and it flips that switch in my brain and I suddenly can look at the book as an editor and I look at it differently and I think to myself, what would I think about this book if it wasn't me? How would I feel about it if somebody else wrote this? What parts would be boring? What parts would I find confusing? What parts would I want more of? And those are the first places that I go back to and try to evaluate what can I do to do more, do less, and adjust from there.
That's great. One of the good things about sitting next to Lisa Mangum is that I can just agree with everything she says. So that's good. As far as tools we use to engage the readers, one of the things that I really like doing is finding elements of my story that are grounded in reality and then make sure that those are spot on. So my book, for example, is about janitors, and there's a lot of, the janitors have like magic powered cleaning supplies, vacuums and mops, and they hunt monsters in schools to defend education. And while the premise of the story is fantasy and there's a lot of magical elements in the book, yeah, it's debatable. The little monsters might be real, but while the story is fantastical, what I think helps engage the reader are the elements that are real. So describing the school in the best way that I can so that it feels like a real school. Describing the house or the street or things like that. I guess kind of that, I noticed there's a panel on verisimilitude, and that's just a fancy word for saying kind of describing the real life things. And so I find that helps to engage my readers, and it's very rewarding for me as an author when a kid comes up to me after having read my book and says, that was fun to read, I could imagine it happening at my school. And then I know that reader was engaged because elements of the story were realistic enough that reader was grounded in those real elements and engaged in that. And then all of the magic and the fantasy and the adventure could happen over the top of that groundwork that had been laid of a realistic base.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
So, let's see.
Good advice. What's your advice?
Read a lot of stuff and be analytical when you're reading other works and find ways to just, I guess, as you analyze it. We did a panel earlier this morning that talked about that. Just as you're reading, analyze and say, why did this work or why didn't this work, and then just kind of try to mimic that in your own writing. And I think that people. Oh, I just remembered some good advice I could give. All right, here's my best advice. My best advice is after you've written a manuscript and it's like it's your golden ticket, it's your baby, you're feeling so good about it, the best thing you can do is, once that's on its way you started querying with it, write something else. Start writing something else immediately, because janitors was not my first. I had submitted many before, and it was because I had been writing all the time that when they turned down one, I said, well, hey, I happen to have another right here. How about this one? No, this one. And I just I just like threw all my manuscripts at them, and I had a lot because I had
come back every time you cut one off. I got 2 more.
Yeah, it was the Hydra of manuscripts. So, but that's my best advice. I think if people get really, really caught up in their golden ticket and their baby, and they put all of their work into that, and they'll edit it and they'll rewrite it and they'll revise it to death, to the point where they don't even enjoy writing or the process anymore at all. And so at that point, you need to step away, and if that one is at a spot where you can start querying, that's great. And in the meantime, while you're waiting to hear back from those agents, get another idea and get that rolling, and I think that's the best idea that I've ever had.
I totally agree with Tyler. Okay, here's the best advice that I've ever heard, and it's not even mine.
I hope it's mine.
No, it's Tyler's one set. No, it's from my friend Rick Walton, and I told him when he said this, I said, I am stealing this, I am using it anytime anybody says, what's your best advice? This is the best advice I've heard. This is what he said to aspiring authors. Quit. And if you can't, do the work. Writing is hard. It's joyous, it's terrifying, it's hard work, it is a job. Publishing is hard, editing is hard, the process is hard. If you can't do it, there's no shame in walking away and doing something else. But if you can't, if there is something inside of you that says, I cannot walk away from this story, I cannot be quiet about this, I have to write it down, I have to do it, then you have to do the work. That's my best advice. I know.
That's good.
Isn't that good?
That's
Thank you.
good advice.
Make sure you attribute that to Rick Walton. Not mine.
Or Tyler Whiteside.
I have 2 things I want to say, and the first one I'll just say very quickly, because I think I've said it before, and that is that I think the biggest danger is self-indulgence. We all know when we're having the second brownie or the ice cream or failing to get out of bed in the morning, or we know what self-indulgence feels like. And when we're writing, I think secretly we know what self-indulgence feels like. And we just have to say to ourselves, I know that you love writing about the wind blowing through his hair and everything. Stop that.
Right.
It's, smack. You have work to do, and you are overdoing this. But the other thing that I wanted to say is own what you write and enjoy it. Because a lot of the things that we've talked about today are how to get a book published, and how to make your book as popular as possible, and how to be as successful as possible. And I would just like to remind you to not always write for success. For instance, I think there may be people in the room who write fan fiction. And I feel strongly that fan fiction is largely about indulgence. That's what's great about fan fiction, is you can write about the wind blowing through his hair just as much as you want. And if that's what you want to write, then say, I'm a proud writer of fan fiction. It's what I love to read, it's what I love to write, and if you'd like to share that with me, I'd be happy to share it with you. And if you would like to write incredibly esoteric things like, Philip K. Dick, which turned out to be extremely successful, but not in his lifetime, then I really want you to say, I have 7 people in the world who really love my books. Somebody once asked my husband, who is also technically an author, he's a professor of cognitive science, so of course he has books.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, you don't understand, my books are avidly read by 100 people worldwide. And somebody was saying, who sells more, you or your wife? He's like, this is not even close. But that's the audience that he's writing for. All that matters to him is that he is reaching his audience and they're really happy with what he has to say. And I think that first off and fundamentally, we should write for our audience and be happy if we make our audience happy. And if it turns out that our audience is only 7 people, I
You've made 7
still
people
think
happy.
that that's what you should write. So that was my audience.